So last night we got a new chapter of The Mandalorian Season 3, The Mines of Mandalore, and this episode was just a ton of fun. There's some good action in it, and it teases and sets up a lot of important things for the rest of the season. So we've got to talk about it. So the episode actually starts off with us being back on Tatooine, which I was really not expecting, and I was hoping we weren't going to be there too long. But it opens up and we see there's like some fireworks going on and what appears to be a pod race, and we learned later that it's the Boonta Eve Classic, which is the same race that Anakin Skywalker races in episode 1 of The Phantom Menace. But essentially our first scene is with Peli Motto. She's talking with a Rodian, doing some kind of business deal with him, some kind of parts. Then, not too much later in the scene, Mando pulls up in his Naboo starfighter with Grogu, and we learned he's in talks with Peli Motto of potentially getting some more upgrades for his vehicle, but he's really here to get a droid because he couldn't get that IG unit on Navarro to work from last episode, so he came here inquiring for that part he needed to fix that IG unit, but the Jawas or Peli didn't have the part, so essentially Mando has to settle for the old R5 reliable droid, originally in A New Hope. And this astromech takes his slot in the N1 starfighter, and they head off of Tatooine relatively quickly. But we get a fun scene with them flying off of Tatooine, lots of fireworks going on from Boonta, and they start to head to Mandalore. As we pull up to the Mandalore system, Din points out some of the planets around them. Kamala, where they went with Bo-Katan, is nearby, and then Concordia, where he grew up, and then he talks with Grogu about the main planet Mandalore, where they're going, where he's actually never been to either. So they enter the atmosphere for Mandalore, and it is a rough ride. It really was reminding me when Luke enters Dagobah, and it's just a rough ride getting in, and I for sure thought they were going to crash, but once they get out of the outer atmospheric cloud, they enter the system. Din informs Grogu that they're basically cut off with communication, though, because of all that. There wouldn't be any signals to be able to get through, so they're basically going to be on their own. So Din orders R5 to go scout ahead and sample a rock, basically to see if the planet is safe for them to get out and explore themselves. But he heads out of sight, and then he disappears. And he even exits off of Din's radar on the ship, so Din basically puts a seal on his helmet and orders Grogu to kind of stay there while he scouts ahead. So Din heads to check on R5. Din enters the cave, basically, and he gets a snippet of the mines and the lost civilization of Mandalore. And as he's taking the view in, he gets meted by some local beasts, some primitive warriors, and he fights off. He has to ignite his lightsaber, but he does manage to fend them off, though it was really kind of a struggle for him, and we can still see the Dark-Saber was very heavy for him. He does manage to win, and he finds R5 and checks on him. They do figure out that the planet itself is breathable and not completely toxic, so Din goes back to the ship, gets Grogu, and they start to head back and go deeper into the ruins of Mandalore. We get a really cool scene with Din and Grogu descending, Din with his jetpack and Grogu with his pod descending very, very deep down. After what was honestly about 20 to 30 seconds of just falling, they end up near the bottom and they get out and start walking, and there's a lot of weird creatures and just more kind of destruction around them. After exploring around a bit, Din comes upon an old Mandalorian helm, which he inspects, and as he's inspecting that, he gets basically trapped in this General Grievous spider-looking machine. So now we have a good amount of scenes here where we're just kind of following from the perspective of Grogu as he's on his own, and he must have been so small for General Grievous-like machine that the machine just didn't see him. So Grogu's kind of sneaking up. He sneaks up to find Din, who is basically caught in a web, and it looks like he's gonna honestly be consumed. Grogu talks with Din real quick, and Din basically says, go back to Bo-Katan. And as they're talking, the General Grievous looking machine shoots a laser beam towards Grogu. Grogu does a force jump backwards into his pod and enters turbo mode in his pod to get him the heck out of there, backtracking. The pod is going like as fast as it probably can go, and he gets back out from where he came. Grogu has to force push one of those primitive beasts that Din ran into before. He enters the Naboo starfighter, and there's some kind of flying creature looking thing that they saw that tries to attack, but Grogu's already inside the ship, and R5 helps Grogu get out of there and then head to Kalamala where Bo-Katan is. When they arrive on Kalamala again, Bo-Katan's kind of annoyed at first because she thinks that Din is back, but then she realizes Din is not there, so something is off. There's an understanding between them, and she needs Grogu to lead them to where Din is being held, so that they might be able to save him in time. And Bo-Katan's ship is just really cool. I just gotta add that in there. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Maul's ship, but it's kind of her own ship, a Mandalorian ship. Really cool. So Grogu leads Bo where they went, and they descend down back to the depths of the ruins. They run into more of those primitive beasts that Bo-Katan kind of goes crazy on and kind of easily defeats. And Grogu kind of looks surprised, and then we get that line where Bo-Katan is like, "Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian?" Kind of flexing a little bit. And then we also learn the name of those creatures from her. We learned that they are called Alamites, and yet they wanted to definitely eat them. And long ago, when Mandalore was more primitive, Bo talks about how these creatures wouldn't be nowhere near this civilization and have to kind of scrape by. But now, I mean, with most of the Mandalorians gone, they just have free roam on the planet. So Grogu leads Bo to where Din was being held captive, and we see that Din is getting like his blood sucked out or something. It's not looking good. And Bo immediately starts firing her blasters at the General Grievous robot man looking dude. The fight starts going south early as the robot fights back, and Bo kind of gets knocked to her side, and then she sees the Dark-Saber on the ground and uses her grappling hook to grab the Dark-Saber, and then she kind of goes crazy with it from there, showing some prowess that this isn't the first time she obviously has held the Dark-Saber, and it's just a really cool scene. The Dark-Saber just looks much more natural and light in her hands, maybe potentially teasing that maybe it shouldn't be Din holding the Dark-Saber. General Grievous knockoff. After she thinks she fully defeats him, actually the head survived and goes on to the big spider robot, and then she has to dispatch of him, and it is finally for sure dead. Bo then gets Din to safety, make sure he's okay. She starts a fire, and she starts making what's called pog soup, which apparently is a staple Mandalorian dish, the more you'd know, and Din takes a good sip. He doesn't remove his helmet, does so under his helmet, and then he hands it over to Grogu, who obviously wants a sip himself. Din seems to be doing all right with a little bit of soup in his system. He re-equips his weapons, including the Dark-Saber. He re-grabs that, and Bo actually agrees that she'll take him to the mines just so it's easier, and basically so she doesn't have to come back to save him. I think that's kind of the plan, or maybe she has some kind of feelings or at least empathy towards Din himself. As they're walking down the ruins towards the mines, she gives a brief history lesson on how the Mandalorians fought each other, and this kind of weakened their house and led to the Empire being able to easily fight against the Mandalorians, and maybe if they were united they would have been able to fight back. Her family used to rule this place, and obviously it's kind of tough for her. It's kind of all a ruin. And from there, she leads Din towards the entrance of the mines, and we find out that Bo-Katan has already been there herself and has a sort of ceremony with her father. When they enter the entrance of the mines, Bo-Katan reads this script off the wall from an ancient text, and basically the sum up of it, according to ancient Mandalorian folklore, the first ever Mandalorian and Mandalore himself actually tamed a Mythosaur in these mines, and this used to be a lair for the Mythosaur. And basically it's from these legends that symbol was adopted from the Mythosaur head. So Din starts taking off some of his heavier Beskar armor and starts to enter the living waters to repent for his sins and to redeem his honor. And he starts to enter it, and as he gets pretty deep, he gets taken down by something, and Bo-Katan has to jump in, and I did not realize these waters were so deep, and she heads down to save Din, and as she's saving him and bring him up through the surface, we see a huge Mythosaur looking at them. And man, this scene was just so epic. The Mythosaur was massive, and I did not realize that it lived underwater for the first place, but wow. Bo gets Din out of the water, and he appears to be alright, just has to catch his breath, and that's where we cut and But wow, what a spot to end off the episode with the Mythosaur there. And yeah, this chapter was just a ton of fun. I really liked seeing Bo-Katan getting a chance to use the Dark-Saber and just to see her prowess with it, you know, potentially teasing her claim to that saber herself. And then of course the Mythosaur at the end, and what implication that means for seeing the beast. What's going to happen next episode with it? Are they going to try to tame it? Who's going to tame it? Is it going to be Bo-Katan? Is it going to be Din? We'll have to see. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where we're going to go from here in the remaining 6 episodes. We've got most of the trailer out of the way. The only stuff we really haven't seen yet are the Coruscant scenes, and I didn't really expect to see those till later themselves. But yeah, I don't really know exactly where this is going, but it really is setting itself up to be a very large scale, and I just really like that they're going deeper into lore this season with, you know, some ancient text markings. I wish they would have mentioned Tar Vizsla, but hey, there's still 6 episodes left. Maybe they'll still mention them. But yeah, my rating for this episode, I'd give it pretty similar to last week. I think it was very strong. I think there could be, you know, maybe a little bit more in it, but it was really good Star Wars, and I just appreciated the lore a lot to it. I'd have to give it, you know, like another 8.5, maybe a 9. Very good and much better than the episode 2 from last season, to say the least. But yeah, I watched that episode 2's premiere with my buddy last night, and here are some of his thoughts on the episode.
Hello everyone. Yeah, so I really liked this episode. I thought it did a good job of kind of building on the story that the other one left off. You know, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what else they'll give us that is new, because yeah, we haven't really been shown a lot of this stuff before. I'd probably give this around an 8.4. Yeah, I really liked all the new stuff they did with the new planet. And yeah, we'll see where they go.
Yeah, again, I thought this episode was a ton of fun. I'm very interested to see where they go from here, and with Bo-Katan potentially, you know, making a claim for that Dark-Saber over Din. We'll see what happens there, because she did look much cleaner in it and much more comfortable and not as heavy. And obviously the Mythosaur, I'm really wondering what ends up happening there, but that thing was massive. I would not mess with it personally. Anyhow, thanks for watching, everyone. Here are some other videos you might like of mine to check out, and there's a large portion of you that keep returning to my videos but haven't hit that subscribe button. So if you like my videos on my channel and you keep returning, it'd be a great help if you could hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Weekly nerdy videos. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.